Bread, the pinnacle of human creation, the foundation of early human society. Civilizations have risen thanks to bread, and revolutions have taken place because of bread. It is no way an exaggeration when I say that bread is the most influential food ever. It's the one constant you'll find anywhere in the world. With how impactful bread is, it was only a matter of time someone would channel that love for bread and make it the central focus of an anime and manga series. Let me introduce you to Yakitate Japan. So guys, you may not know this, but I'm kind of a big fan of bread. So imagine my surprise when I found out that all this time, there existed an anime that was truly about bread and nothing more. Yakitate Japan is an anime that truly celebrates bread and the art of making bread. It's a wholesome series that wears its love for bread on its sleeves as it takes you from episode to episode, showing you the different processes to making the many types of bread that exist in our world, while being damn hilarious about it too. The story of Yakitate Japan centers around our main character, Azuma Kazuma, a boy born with the gift of the solar hands. I guess I'll call it a special ability that makes his hands naturally warmer than the average person, which in turn leads to any bread he bakes coming out noticeably better than the average loaf. This is because his solar hands let him activate yeast at a much faster rate, resulting in the dough spending less time rising and coming out tasting much fresher than bread baked by other people. Coupled with the fact that he spent his childhood experimenting and baking bread, at the young age of 16, he's become a baker good enough to rival the top bakers in Japan. But Azuma isn't on a quest to be the very best baker like no one ever was. No, he's out on a quest to make Japan's ultimate bread, Japan. A few of you might be confused at what I just said. Pretty much every country around the world has their signature bread. The French have baguettes, the Mexicans have tortillas, the Indians have naan, and we Nigerians have agege bread. That shit is like crack to me. But in Yakitate Japan, Japan doesn't have a signature bread that they can share with the rest of the world. So Kazuma has made it his goal to make that bread and call it Japan, which is a clever pun making use of the Japanese word for bread and the country, Japan. In his long quest to make the ultimate bread for the Japanese, he has made 55 different iterations of Japan, some of which, as we find out later down the line, are just his own renditions of other forms of bread from around the world. Kazuma's journey leads him to the headquarters of the #1 bakery and bread chain in all of Japan, Pantasia, where he applies, is put to test his baking skills, but unfortunately doesn't end up getting a role at Pantasia's HQ, but is instead posted to one of their lesser known branches in the southern part of Tokyo. This is where he meets the rest of the supporting cast. Kawachi, fellow newbie and pseudo-rival who's a goofball and acts as the main person who's reacting or giving commentary on the story's events, but don't be fooled as he can also hold his own when it comes to baking bread. Tsukino, one of the daughters to the head of Pantasia. She too is a masterful baker that runs the southern Tokyo branch and watches over the rest of the crew. She serves as the sly and wholesome support to the other characters. And then we have Ken, the hard-boiled Afro-wearing manager and the #1 French bread maker in all of Japan. He takes the role of the wise mentor to our newbies. These are the characters we spend the most time with, getting into all sorts of bread-related antics as they grow in skill and become even better bakers. That's Yakitate Japan, and let me tell you, the anime takes its premise very seriously. It might be a light-hearted series, but it never once makes fun of bread and the act of making bread. It truly does respect the art form. As I spent my time watching through the series, I was reminded of why I love anime and the manga medium so much. It's a medium that truly expresses the freedom of imagination and creating art. It's able to immerse you in whatever outlandish premise it presents in a way that is genuine and never feels like it's doing so in an ironic or mean-spirited way. Maybe it's a series about Jesus and Buddha being bros. Maybe it's a series about kids battling it out using spinning tops. Hell, maybe it's a series about a boy who fights demons with the power of horniness. There will always be a series out there that, no matter how crazy it may sound to you, somehow it always just works. But Yakitate Japan isn't as crazy. It's zany and full of gags, yes, but when it comes to making bread, it becomes a lot more grounded in the real-world principles of baking. And this is one of the anime's biggest strengths. The way it's able to educate viewers on the science behind baking, how there's a lot that goes into making bread than just mixing flour, yeast, butter, and sugar, all the while being entertaining, making use of classic shonen tropes we've come to know and love, ensures that not only are you having a blast watching it, you're also learning a lot of useful knowledge about bread. They even throw in an actual tutorial on how to make bread using a rice cooker, which was hilarious. You'd think that it'd be hard to make a shonen about baking bread, but don't be fooled. The anime is able to masterfully weave the shonen tropes and story structure into a wholesome story with low stakes. Like, we've got a main character with a unique ability, special and signature moves unique to characters, an overly serious edgy rival who wants to surpass the main character, a character that starts out as an enemy but joins them later on, and it even gets the shonen staple of tournament arcs. Even though the stakes are pretty low and the series is more of a comedy, like, come on, all they're doing is making bread, there's still a lot to be invested in. The characters being front and center. They might not have a lot of layers to them, but they all have a certain charm to them that you can't help but fall in love with. Take our main character Kazuma. He's your typical Genki shonen protag with the only thing on his mind being bread. He's kind of naive, childish, and tends to misunderstand just about everything. You'd think there isn't much to him in terms of character, and you'd be kind of right, but what I love about him though are his motivations. Kazuma spent his childhood baking bread for his family, and after making one particular loaf his family loved the most, he kept making that one over and over again. But he soon quickly fell out of love with that and stopped eating. This is what spurred him to constantly come up with new and different methods to making bread, innovating and refining his craft to ensure he's able to make any kind of bread. Throughout the anime, we see how Kazuma embodies this series' main theme, that being imagination. Kazuma is an imaginative kid who stumbled upon different ways of making bread through trial, error, and imagination. We learn early on in the series that Kazuma does in fact know how to bake other breads from around the world, like naan, without ever studying them or knowing they existed. He discovered all these breads on his own and aptly named them Japan. This is his pure imagination at work, and the anime teaches us to embrace imagination. Just because there are rules that dictate how something should be done in a particular way, doesn't mean you have to do that thing in that particular way. Remember, you have free will. This theme of imagination even begins to affect our pseudo-rival, Kawachi. When he's introduced to you, you most likely won't like him, but as the story goes on, this goofball begins to grow on you. Kawachi is a guy who took up baking to follow his father's footsteps. His dad was a man who tried to get into Pantasia but failed their entrance exam over and over again. But not once did his love for baking ever wane. However, it's that very love that leads to his undoing. Getting carried away with baking caused a fire that unfortunately took his father's life. Like, bro, this is an anime about baking. I didn't think things would get that serious. Kawachi is a guy who, while he may not be as imaginative as Kazuma, he makes up for it with sheer guts and determination. He's always able to pull through and even gets his own special power called the Solar Gauntlet. You really get to warm up to him, which is why when you watch him get screwed over during the tournament arc, you really feel for the guy. Hell, it moved me to tears watching him. And the supporting cast are just as strong too, but I think the one who really takes the cake, or I guess takes the bread, would be Kuroyanagi. This man is an absolute riot to watch. Next to Kawachi, he's the man who gives the most commentary in the anime. Since he acts as the judge during the tournament arc, we get to see him make the most zany and outlandish reactions to good bread. He's just like me for real. This man will be eating bread that either triggers forgotten memories or transports him to heaven while monologuing on what exactly makes that bread so good. And to make it even funnier, his voice actor is the same as Dio's, so it is very hard to not think about Dio humiliating himself talking about bread. These gags are another of the anime's strengths. Their setups are incredibly simple and you can tell they're coming, but that never stops them from being funny. They get so creative with their gags and humor that every time one comes up, it'll have you wheezing on the floor. The humor also relies on a lot of Japanese puns. If you weren't familiar with Japanese and the culture to some degree, a lot of the jokes would fly over your head. That's probably why the anime never got an English dub. These jokes and gags would be impossible to adapt to an English audience. We wouldn't want another jelly donut situation on our hands. Huge shout out to the people that subbed the anime though. The way they throw in translator notes to explain the wordplay was very much welcome, though explaining the joke reduces its impact, you can't help but appreciate the effort. These fan sobas from the early 2000s were just a different breed, I tell ya. It was super nostalgic seeing these notes pop up while watching. Yakitate Japan, in my eyes, is perfect. Perhaps this is my bias towards bread talking, but if you were to watch it yourself, there is no way you wouldn't be able to see how much the series loves and celebrates bread. It's a love letter to imagination and a reminder that even a humble loaf of bread can be full of surprises. It's silly, whimsical, and very educational. I can't recommend this series enough to any and all who love bread. Every time I finished an episode, I was only left craving bread, but feeling inspired to make my own bread. Which I actually can since I've got a bread maker sitting at home. Who knows, maybe one day I'll try to recreate every single Japan in the anime. I'd need a lot of flour for that. So hit that like and subscribe to motivate me to actually commit to such a grand undertaking, and as always, this has been your very favorite slice of bread. Stay toasty.